Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everybody. It's Monday, and I almost said Tuesday, and I always have this habitual pattern, apparently, where I'm always kind of a day late, dollar short, or a day behind, I should say. But I am here in an active form. To those of you who are watching the eclipse, congratulations to you. I hate to say it, and this is probably an unpopular vote, but I really don't care much about it. My kids don't. They're actually home, and they don't really care either, so I'm like, okay, more power to you. Please don't go blind. Obviously, buy glasses or do something. So kudos to you guys on that. I want to remind everybody before I start with Jonathan, just a couple quick notes for the show today. First of all, obviously Jonathan's on at 1 o'clock Central Time. Tomorrow I'm getting the pleasure of interviewing actress and business owner, because some of you don't know she's actually a business owner as well. Her name is Lisa Wilcox. Most of you might recognize her from her roles in Nightmare on Elm Street. She was in Part 4 and Part 5, actually, and she's one of the sole survivors of Freddy Krueger, if you can believe it. But in addition to that, she has a jewelry retail line, actually. It's a footwear jewelry line, which I'm excited to talk about as well. And she also actually did her start in daytime and nighttime soap operas, so I'm actually quite excited about that. And I'll get a chance to talk to people who have done some of the iconic shows that I still watch today, because I'm a geek who watches old-time television or MeTV. And then I want to remind everybody, Wednesday I'm still waiting on confirmation, and I'm excited about this because the person coming on the show is supposed to be, assuming he can get to do so, is Ed Armatrudo. And Ed Armatrudo actually plays Hayden Panettieri's manager on the hit TV show Nashville. So I'm just waiting to get confirmation for him. If that's the case, he'll be on Wednesday. If not, I'm going to take the day off. And then on Thursday at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, I'm so excited and so apologetic because it's taken us over a year to finally reschedule this. Jeff Penny is coming on the show. He's actually a Canadian musician who has played both guitar and drums. So I'm excited to, A, finally get the interview in the basket. But second of all, I always like to talk to the Canadians because obviously I live in the United States. He lives in Canada. There's creative differences. There's just different ways of promoting and managing, et cetera. So I'm super, super excited about it. So please, tune into one show, tune into all three shows, tune in every day for all. I'm just tune in, period. And not so much for my benefit, but for theirs, obviously. There's a reason I built this platform, and it's to help to establish and entertain and motivate and inspire. So these guys, every single person is an inspiration to me. Lastly, I don't want to forget to remind everybody about, I'll be posting up my schedule in terms of, I'll start promoting some of the Art is Alive Film Festival films and the comic book, and of course, obviously, the calendar coming out. And the last thing that I want to mention, just before I start, is I cannot thank everyone enough for their very kind words and messages and texts. And obviously I realize that I have disappeared from social media and otherwise, and I'm sure most of you heard firsthand from me, obviously, but very unexpectedly I found out that I lost a loved one over the weekend. Well, myself and someone I love, somebody very, very dear, the dear person to both of us. So obviously I'm still mourning. Obviously I'm very quiet, but I just want you all to know how much I appreciate the fact that you're thinking about me and your condolences. It means a great deal to me, more than you know, actually. So I'm just sad, Cindy, but I'm here. So without further ado, I'm going to let Jonathan and I commence our interview because he's far more spectacular than I, and most importantly, he's slowly but surely becoming one of my fan favorites for very many reasons. So you want to stop listening to me babble and let's listen to him babble instead. So here we go. Jonathan?
Hi.
I'm talking and talking and talking. I'm like, I hope he realizes that I'm actually doing something in this 5 minutes and that I'm not, like, blowing him off.
No, I've been listening, and I just want to thank you for having me on. I'm really honored. And this is kind of surreal, so thank you.
Well, this is awesome. Well, and, this is like our actual first introduction. See, the whole rest of the 61,000 people listening don't know that we've been talking to each other for a while. And the first thing I want to say about the man on the other end of the line is, if he were here, he would see, when you meet me, you'll see this. There's a certain look that I get on my face, and it's only around certain people, like my children or Michael Madsen when I meet him. There's just that special look you get. And so Jonathan has earned this special look, which is that kind of head down, like I'm in awe, I'm not worthy sort of thing. So, yes, I publicly said, and not that you've been on social media, but I publicly said this about you not so long ago, which was I said, I think I'm developing this amazingly wonderful, strong friendship with a man I've never even met who's this director guy. And I'm like, does that sound like I'm a freak? Nobody said no, so I'm like, that's actually a good thing, I think, then. So I should
not
thank
at all.
you.
I do that all the time, I feel like. Not like that.
Really?
Like, I mean, with you, like, I feel like we've started a strong relationship. But I always like,
right.
you know, like I'll talk to somebody, like a stranger on the street, and I'll feel like maybe
sure.
I'm like, you know, thinking that I'm too invested in this like small interaction that I'm having with a stranger, where they might be like, wait a minute, is he crazy? Like.
No, I totally understand. I do. And what's nice about building relationships with people, like, you know, with doing this film festival, I mean, I interview directors all the time before I decided to do the festival. And what's neat about them is they all do different genres, like your film's different from somebody else's film. They all have very different personalities. Some of them have egos, some of them don't. Some of them are very easy, and some of them are so easy it's, like, scary. You're one of the very easy to the scary point. Like, oh, my God, he's so easy, it's ridiculous. So that's what I want to ask you. You know, a lot of the people that listen to my show are creatives, so they're either in your field, wanting to get in your field, wondering about that. So let's start off at the very base root of things. When we talk about film, when I talk about film with a lot of people, I always try to get to the root of why they do what they do. So for you, are you a filmmaker who's just going to continue to do personal message films all the time because that matters to you? Or are you going to be all over the fence because obviously your experience as a director is a little limited than some of the other ones who've done 20, 30, 40 films? So why directing? Why making these films? What's your root cause for all this?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I've always loved movies. I grew up watching movies. Like, I just think it's a really powerful medium. We're a very visual culture. I mean, I write, like, prose, too, but, like, there's just something about being able to, I don't know, that connection you can have with an audience and tell a story visually that's really fun. And, yeah, I mean, I think it's just, like, a love for the thing that I grew up on, and it meant so much to me. I feel like it kind of shaped my worldview in a lot of ways. Like, there's so many movies that I feel like my opinions as a person can go back, and I could kind of trace them back to a movie that kind of shaped the way that I see things or my political views or stuff like that. So you kind of realize how powerful it can be. So, I mean, plus it's fun.
Very well put, actually. Do you feel that you pattern yourself after any particular director's style? Like if I were to ask you, like, oh, well, you know, when you shoot films, does this come in mind? Or do you use a particular pattern or look to somebody else's experience for guidance? In the director realm, that is.
I don't know. Like, there's so many directors that I kind of, like, adore, and it's so weird because I think the directors that I love the most, I totally have nothing, like, the visual aesthetics of my films have nothing in common with theirs.
Sure.
But I feel like as far as, like, the Frogmarch is concerned, like, the feature film I made, I feel like I borrowed a lot from Peter Berg's, like, Friday Night Lights in a way.
Right.
And he's a director I kind of like his films a lot. But like as far as like the direct like Spielberg, you know, and Hitchcock, I feel like more of like a storytelling, like their storytelling abilities, but not so much visually.
Gotcha. No, I understand. One of the key elements that I talk about a lot of times when we speak to directors, or at least when I talk to them, is we live in the age of 2017 now where all of a sudden everybody has a camera, which means if I own a camera, I can make a film. And to me, it almost seems like it's become too simplistic. Do you know what I mean? Like it seems like the art form in filmmaking is dying out to some degree. And I know that sounds relatively bleak. And I'm not, folks, just so you know, I'm not trying to downplay any manner, shape, or form making films. But to me, I envision these projectors and these old-time things. Would you concur? Do you think that we're kind of taking a step in a different direction in terms of filmmaking that hopefully, I guess I just can't picture somebody picking up an iPhone and filming a film. You know what I mean? It just seems almost too, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, like I agree, and like I mean, we're definitely in the middle of a shift. I mean, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I was just watching a movie last night, and I won't say the title of the film because it really didn't have so much to do with the film, but the look of it. And I was just thinking about how like digitized and crisp and video-like it looked, and it doesn't look real. It just kind of looks it almost looks like CGI in a way, but it's just the way that we film things now in high definition, and. It's weird because it doesn't seem very real to me because I'm used to films looking like the older black and white films or like Lawrence of Arabia where you have that graininess.
Sure.
So like I don't know, like it's an interesting thing because like now like I don't know, I just heard somebody was telling me this crazy statistics where because of like iPhones and everything, there's more pictures taken in a day now than like the entire history of like photography. because, you just have billions of people taking pictures. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's one of those things that we're not going to know for a while. I mean, it's kind of exciting because people get to make films, and it's not just this elite few that can afford to make it. So you have these storytellers that normally wouldn't get the money making films, but on the other hand, you have so many people making films that it's harder to kind of get noticed.
Right. No, I would agree with that, definitely. And that's got to be frustrating because I know that I've written films myself, but I refuse to direct them because I suck at it. I'm a very passive-aggressive sort of person, and I'm like, I would totally bomb at this entire thing. I can't picture it. But I can only imagine that there's complications because people don't realize it's not just once you become the director, you're responsible for everything, even though you may not have your hand in everything at every single moment. That's a huge amount of responsibility to your actors, to yourself, to everyone, and that's just amazing to me. I'm like, oh, my God. Why do you think I interview so many of you people? Because I'm in awe. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm not worthy. Trust me. Wait till my festival. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's an homage of, oh, my God, I'm not worthy of being in this room. It's just absolutely amazing. I found this out about you, which is really cool. I didn't realize that you had I myself had done writing contests before, and I won something. I think my first award when I was 16. And I see that you had taken the Red Branch Journal Fiction Contest winner for No One's Home. I want you to talk about that a little bit, like how old you were and what, a lot of the freelance writers that are out there today, including myself, when I first started out, I was like, I literally entered everything under the sun, and I lost all the time, and it was it didn't build me up for rejection. It basically almost makes you want to stop writing, at least for me. And so I want you to talk about having won that, how that came about, the piece itself, and then talk to your audience a little bit about dealing with that writer's rejection thing, because I'm still bad at it.
Yeah, I don't know, the rejection thing, I feel like if anyone could kind of corner the market on that or figure it out, they'd be making millions of dollars if they could write in a book about being rejected. I mean, I don't think I handle it any better than anyone else. But No One's Home is a piece that I wrote. Actually, I started writing it when I wrote it initially when I was 19 or 20, so I'm going to date myself here. It's been 15 years since I actually wrote it. Sure. And then about 5 years ago, I found it on a computer, or I found a hard copy of it, and I read it. And I was like, wow, this is really good. Am I sure that, I actually had to go back and, read emails to make sure that, it wasn't something that somebody had given me. I remember kind of writing it, but it had been so long since I wrote it that I was like, wow, this is, not something that I thought I could do, and I really loved it. And so I started submitting it to places, and, like you said, I was just getting rejected left and right. And then there was this small literary journal that was doing a fiction writing contest. And actually, I felt bad because a friend of mine who's a writer submitted to it. And so I was like, I'm going to submit too. And I submitted No One's Home, and it ended up winning, which was really exciting. And it's so strange because you do get a rejected day after day after day. That's kind of built into being a writer. And then it's so amazing how one acceptance can kind of just even the playing field for all the rejection. You're like, okay, so there is a reason that I'm here doing this, which is really great. And yeah, the piece was about, it was from the perspective of, she was basically describing, an elderly woman that she was living, I think I'm going to butcher this. The whole story is told from this perspective of a mother talking about a child. But at the end of the story, you realize that the child is actually her mother, that she's taking care of. Because it's kind of that bookend of life where we're depending on someone else to take care of us.
Gotcha. I understand. I do. Well, and the other thing, too, is I oftentimes tell this, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but I'm I almost think it takes you a good 100 rejections, because I've had at least that much in my lifetime, before you finally start to realize, okay, this isn't really necessarily about your ability or inability of something as much as it is timing, I think. I think we all need time to hone our craft, to get ourselves to an accelerated level, to a point where we're actually ready. And then once you find your niche and find your place, then it's much easier for you. Do you know what I mean? I guess I'm trying to emphasize to folks that it's not that they're poor writers, or it's not that they're I don't want people to just give up. Do you know what I'm saying? It's kind of try it until you're exhausted and then try again. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. I mean, how do you deal with rejection personally as an author yourself? I mean, how do you handle that, or how do you let it just roll off your back? you know?
Well, I mean, I think my process, I actually read this great thing by Elizabeth Perkins. She wrote a book and called Big Magic, and one of the things she was talking about in rejection, because with me, I used to take rejection, and it would basically put me out of commission for a couple of weeks because I would just be letting it weigh on me and make it define me as a person and losing sleep over it, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm bad at this. And so,
Sure.
I got to a point where I'd get better about it, and it would only affect me for a few days. But then I read this book by Elizabeth Perkins called Big Magic, and I recommend to anybody who's creative to read it because it's one of the best and most down-to-earth and just pragmatic and just kind of humane views of creativity. And one of the things she was talking about in it is how when she gets a rejection, she just kind of it's kind of for every action there's reaction. So when she gets rejection, the way that she handles it is just submitting another writing as a response to it, to somewhere else. Being the world hits her and she just kind of hits it back with another submission. I really like that. Because, it's just, everybody gets rejected, and it's not just bad writers,
right.
It's everybody. And it's funny because I think I read an interview with John Steinbeck when he was talking about The Grapes of Wrath or East of Eden. He's like, everything I wrote before that was just practice. And I was like, really? You're going to define of Mice and Men as practice? We're it's all kind of how you view it.
Yes, it is. And it comes to perspective, I think, sometimes, too, because I don't think people realize, just because one opportunity comes around doesn't mean that 75 won't come around, in the process as far as that goes. So
yeah.
I try to keep a chin up about it. I guess I struggle more with the editing side of things, meaning if I'm freelancing and I write something for someone and it's less than perfect and they tell me that, I don't know if it's an age thing or not, but my nose crinkles up and I get all uncomfortable and I'm like, seriously? What do you mean by that? You know what I mean? It's like I'm not my hardest enough critic. Now you're telling me that I'm not as good as I should be. So yeah, that's tough. Folks, I'm telling you, if you want to be a writer, you better get tough skin. I mean, and you're going to have to write yourself a note every day. I am good at this. I'm good at this. I'm worthy. I'm good at this. I can do this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please, do yourself a favor now, because later you'll feel worse. Trust me. I do it. It's like a lesson in self-liking every day after I remind myself of that. So it's tough. It is. So congratulations on that. That's absolutely awesome. And I'll have to read that or see that sometime. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
That would be very cool. Absolutely. So I took a look, and folks, in case you don't know, he's just the cutest little thing. You're just so cool and cute. I mean, your physical presence, I'm like, you're almost too little to be a director. Do you know what I mean? You look like you should be on the Marvel's Avengers set. You reminded me of that the other day. I'm like, I totally could see Jonathan being in a role in the Avengers movie or a superhero movie. That makes me sound stupid, doesn't it? But it's true. You have this. You're just so little, and you're all dressed up and getting this little thing at a film festival, and I thought, how awesome is that? So just so you know, folks, Jonathan is a real live person. He's not just a director or he's not just an actor or writer. He has, a personal life. So we're big on talking about personal life on this show because it's my show and I can. So I always like to ask people, Jonathan's very much in love. It's very sweet. It's oh. Because usually I'm I hate you people because you have a life and I don't, because I don't have relationships, but I'm not hating you. It's all about love on this show. So we want to talk about your relationship with your significant other, and there's a reason for that. I've been quoted as saying this many times, which is the foundation of you from a personal and a professional perspective, I think, has a lot to do with the person that you are at home, meaning that if you have enough love and support and attention and affection, it just makes you 110% fold better in the real world. So talk to us a little bit about your significant other, and is she creative, and how she kind of helps to envelop you into this eclectic, amazing person that you are.
Wow, okay. That's she's very creative. She's much more creative than me. She's a painter, and she's a phenomenal painter. But beyond that, she's just a really wonderful human being. She's been through a lot in her life. She immigrated from Ukraine when she was 12 or 13. And she just kind of had to deal with the culture shock and all of the challenges of changing from basically one world to another. And so she's extremely creative. She's very supportive. She's beautiful. She's vulnerable and complicated, and we have just a really good dynamic, I guess. And she's inspiring. That's the thing. And I don't know. To me, it's just the support and honesty thing and the inspiration. Those are the three pillars, I feel like.
Oh, so sweet. Have you enveloped her into a character? Meaning that, have you used her as inspiration or some kind of motivation for anything you've ever written or put together?
I feel like a lot of, and I feel like, no, not her, and I feel like she's just so kind of too real to be a character. But there are definitely aspects of her that I definitely, that inspire characters.
That's very cool. Now, I have to ask this question only because I am a journalist, so I always want to get the first scoop on this. So if we ventured off and said a hypothetical, like, do you think maybe Jonathan will be doing something permanent with this relationship? He would say...
Probably. Yes.
There's like this long pause, and I'm like...
Well, it's just like, it's like I feel like
I don't want to put you on the spot. No, of course not.
I appreciate that.
It just, you're very, very sweet in terms of, and folks, I'll tell you right now, he has nothing but absolute adoration and affection and respect for his partner, which is very refreshing actually to see, because I don't think people realize, like, we're in the same business, you and I, and to some extent, sometimes doing what you do for a living and the thing that you love so much puts a lot of pressure on a relationship. I don't think they realize that. Like, if, certain actors that are on set for 12, 14 hours a day, 5 days a week sometimes, that's rough on a relationship. Or, just everything that comes along with that can be really tough. So kudos to you. I mean, seriously, I'm hugely happy for you that you have found somebody that completes you in such a manner. That's awesome. Really, truly it is. Oh, and by the way, I feel like I should apologize. You look like that kind of person that's, like, glued to the TV right now or looking out the window at the eclipse. Did I, like, break your heart by actually literally planning this during the day? Because I feel like I should be apologizing. Sorry.
No, I feel like the whole eclipse thing is, I'm like
here?
With you. Huh?
Oh. No, oh my God, cut it out. You're going to make me cry. See, he's good at this. Like, all of a sudden out of nowhere you'll look and then there's this message from him and he has the nicest thing to say and I'm like, oh my God, there's another me in the world. You're like a little mini me. Only, well, yeah, I'm little too, so don't feel bad. So it's one of those things. I don't know where that came from. So now, Jonathan has a variety of interests in his personal life. If he was on Instagram right now, you'd have the pleasure of seeing some of the things that I've seen because he posts some of the most amazing stuff from his workplace, which I think is so cool. You're almost a one-man comedy show. I mean, that's what I like to look at you as. If you've seen some of his pictures, stuff he likes to post, like things that you point out to the average person, they're hilarious. I mean, they're obviously, I'm guessing, part of your personality. But you're a New Yorker, so I have to ask you this question. So if I was walking the streets of New York right now and I was looking for Jonathan, kind of peg out a day for us, because I think what most people, when they hear the words, I'm interviewing director so-and-so today, they're picturing you on a set 24/7 and you're casting actors and you're, because that's the impression that people have. Well, they directed this, so of course they're directing another one right now. So let's talk about the reality of your life a little bit. So, you have a day job, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, folks, I know all of this already, but I want him to describe this to you so you get a realistic idea of indie film nowadays, because he hasn't gotten to Hollywood yet. Indie film is made how? So tell us about the day in the life of Jonathan.
Okay. So, yeah, there's the day job, which is basically 9 to 5.
Sure.
And then, it's just, other than that, it's basically just trying to get people on the same page and making a lot of phone calls and shaking hands and kissing babies and asking people for things and thanking people for things and watching films and just kind of, writing notes and storyboarding. There are people that I'll sit down with and storyboard. You kind of have to, break up, I would love to, because I'm totally type A and try to control everything, I would love to, get everyone in a war room and kind of work on everything collectively. But I also know that that's so detrimental to the process. So I need to focus on one thing at a time. So one night I'll do storyboarding, another night we'll do rehearsals with actors, another night I'll just do a conference call with my director of photography because he's out of North Carolina. And just kind of getting all these pieces on the same page and looking at measurements for the location and lighting, and then we go through some demo reels for lighting and camera setups and see how that works. And eventually one foot in front of the other eventually becomes a film.
Gotcha. Now, I don't know what it's like on the director's side of the fence, but me as a writer, I always say to myself, literally, you're always either in between projects, starting a new project, or looking for the next best idea for a project. Would you concur? Would you say that most of us creatives are pretty much on that same parallel line, that we kind of turn everything into art at some point in time or another?
Yeah, I would have to completely agree with you. Like, there are so many, like, I really feel like my brain just juggles, like, 95 different things at once. It's kind of like a Cirque du Soleil kind of thing.
Right.
And, yeah, I mean, it's very strange because I really, I'll see something one day and I won't really think too much of it, and then all of a sudden, like, another day I'll see something else, and those two ideas will, like, clash in my brain, and I'll be like, oh, my God, that'd be a great film. And
right.
so then,
right.
I mean, I think that's how things usually happen by accident. It's so funny how I'll see a movie that I really like I'll see the Marvel movies, and I'll be like, oh, my God, I totally want to make a superhero movie, and that will be, like, my mission in life. But it's so funny how that will never happen, but then this accidental idea will just come to me, and that will be what I end up making.
That's so cool, though. That's awesome. That is
kind
of
cool.
That.
It's weird, though. Like, I really would like to make a superhero movie.
Jonathan, I'm not shocked by that, actually. Not to mention the fact, of course, you'd be really good at that. You could, like, star in it, and it could be, like, kind of over-the-top sort of thing. Actually, I would film it at your work, because I've seen where you work, and it's like I could totally see something like that going on. See what I mean? Us creatives, you got to be crazy to be a creative. I know that people don't like that, but I get called crazy all the time, and I think it's quite a bit of flattery. I think the more nuts you are, the more creatively on top of your game you are, if that makes sense to you. I definitely think that our brains are shifted and molded very differently than the average person. I mean that in a compliment.
Yeah, no, like it's like it is like I like thinking the way I think because I realize that I don't think like normal people. I mean, not that normal people think a certain way. I just think of things very differently than most people, and
I think they get it.
Some parts of me like make me kind of like there are parts where I'm like I might really just go and spiral off into insanity if I keep thinking about things this way, and so it's kind of scary but really cool at the same time.
Gotcha. I understand. I do. Definitely. Well, thank you for a day in the life because I was always curious about that because I'm like he's constantly busy all the time too because I'll notice that I'm like if I send him a text like sometimes he's right on top of it and then it's like 18 hours before. Just kidding. But it's like 10 hours before I get the next answer. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing during all this time? So it's rather interesting, I have to say. Now, I know you obtained your education at Emerson College, which is you got a BA in both film and English. And I like to talk about this one, too, a lot of times on this, because some people subscribe to the school of no school, meaning that, oh, you don't need to have any experience in this, meaning you don't need a background in English or journalism or film or creative arts. You can just go off and create. So there's some people that have just created life experience, and that was it. And there are some like yourself that took the path, obviously, of getting themselves accelerated in education. So to those that are listening in, not that we want to discourage education, but just talk a little bit about how pursuing a path for education relative to your career choice was the smarter way to go for you. So this way people get a bird's eye view, because I didn't finish college. Because I'm a loser, but you did. But
you're in no way a loser.
Oh,
there's plenty of great people never went to college.
Right.
No, well, for me it was I'm kind of like reversed because I dropped out of high school. So, like college was really the only because I stopped going to high school when I was like 15. There was truancy, and then I dropped out officially like on my 16th birthday because you had to wait until you were 16. So I really missed all of high school. So when I got my act together, I was like, oh my God, I need to do something and I should have some sort of demonstrative skills to offer to the world. And I like writing, I like film. I should go to school for that and learn that. Meanwhile, learn all the gen ed stuff. So I feel like college was kind of like my high school.
Well, look at that. Would you say that nowadays, and I don't know if you do continuing education because I talk to, actors and directors and other people that are, especially actors in particular, that are doing continuing education because they want to stay on the top of their field. So would you recommend to the folks out there, if they're delving into either the acting or directing side of things, do you think it's particularly crucial that they stay on the top of their game by taking further education or mentoring under somebody or going to different classes or workshops? What would you personally recommend to folks?
I think it's kind of, if you're creative, the number one rule is kind of surround yourself with people who are on the same mission with you. Because if you're not spending time, if you're an actor and you're not spending time with other actors, chances are you're not around the people who understand what you're doing and want to do that too, and kind of giving you ideas. And you kind of through networking you find out about events and stuff. So I feel like whether it's a class or a meetup or something, I feel like you should spend time with other people who are doing the thing that you want to do. It's just good for the exposure and good for networking. because I feel like any really successful person, I always feel like their life story involved somebody they knew getting them a job or them going somewhere with somebody they knew to some gig or like something like that.
Ah, I getcha. Well, and too, what I think a lot of times what people don't realize, like some of my friends are directors, and they give classes to actors and to fellow directors, etc. But you'd be amazed how much one panel or one workshop can make a difference, because it's not just what you learn from the instructor, it's what you learn from your fellow comrades to the left and to the right of you. You know what I mean? You're all kind of in that same wading pool together, so I think different experiences will give you different advice, different ways, different means to do things. So I wholeheartedly say to folks, get out there and do something, even if it's just going to meetings or just like you're saying, surrounding yourself with like minds is a huge deal, I have to say. Now, question, because of course I said I was going to squeeze out all these details, because this is so killer that you worked with Billy Crystal. We still have to talk about this because I am in awe of Billy Crystal. Like every time I think of him, I think of City Slickers. Don't ask me why. I just do. It's like the first thing that ever comes to my mind is City Slickers. And he's done like so much stuff. So you have to tell the folks how you got blessed enough to be aligned to working with him, and then that experience, meaning that people like us meet people like him. And not everybody gets to do that. So, explain that feeling, that moment when you're standing in front of that person. What's that like?
Yeah, well, Billy, like you, City Slickers, I feel like that was, I grew up watching him doing the Oscars. He was definitely an idol.
Right.
Him and Robin Williams were, up, doing even the comic relief, watching that as a kid, I just loved, everything they were doing. And so somebody who had graduated Emerson before me, who I knew was a personal assistant at his office, and then they were leaving, and they got me an interview, so I went there. And so basically worked there for, it was probably 6 to 8 months, I feel like, doing development. Okay. And that was during the time he was doing his one-man show. Yeah. Okay. And so there was only really probably 3 months of which he was, solidly in the office all the time, but he was a sweet guy, very soft-spoken. It's funny because, I had the first couple weeks I was there, he wasn't there, so I was kind of, waiting for him to burst in the door, doing song and dance. And then, he came in, and he was just, a really just, it's very odd to see somebody just be themselves and not who they are up on stage. And he was really nice, and he was a good guy. And it's funny because his office actually was, it had, a Western, ranch kind of style to it, like City Slickers. And it was, it was an amazing office. So it was always cool to, go in there and see. And then he had giant Monsters Inc. Statue thing. Yeah.
That's another thing.
It was cool. It was a really cool experience. I wish that there was more. That was during the period, because I guess he was doing the show that they weren't really doing film development, and that's kind of what I was out in LA trying to do. So he was working on a great project then, but nothing yet came to fruition with it. So hopefully someday.
Got it. Well, and the thing, too, is, I know this is going to sound like an oxymoron, but is he a funny guy?
Oh, yeah.
I think we expect that, is Jim Carrey a funny guy or so-and-so. You know what I mean? Because it's what if all of a sudden this big comedian that we all know isn't funny? On his daytime, on his regular time, he's totally not funny. He just cues it up to be on the camera. You know what I'm saying? I'm wouldn't that be funny if Billy Crystal wasn't funny? Well, it wouldn't be funny, but you know what I mean. Oh my God, it's different. So, yeah.
He's very funny. He's just very quiet. He's not as, I expect him to be very, high energy like he is on stage. But he's just, he just does his thing. And, he'll, when he does when he tells a joke or tries to be funny, of course he's funny. But, more than that, he's just being, a somber, everyday kind of guy.
Cool. That's very, very cool. I like that. So if you're listening, Billy Crystal, I like you a lot. So please come on my show, and I'll offer you lots of things. And I have pictures of Mike Kowalski in my house. I do.
That's
and
awesome.
I own 3 of your films. Can you say When Harry Met Sally? I'm such an addict of that show. It's or that movie. That's oh my God, he makes me cry every time. I hate you, Billy Crystal, for that. But it's amazing. I love that movie. So I'm that's really cool. So see, you've met some really cool people. That's awesome. And all I want to do is just meet Jonathan. What do I have to do to meet Jonathan?
You're going to meet me soon.
Well, that's what I hear. We'll have to talk about that. But I want to talk about you right now because I'm not really that important. We want to talk about, so you founded your company, which is called, by the way, folks, Blanket Fort Films, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And you've been doing that for about 7.5 years. I could guess why you call it Blanket Fort, but why don't you explain to the folks the meaning behind that name? And, of course, with being the founder of a film corporation, let's say, for instance, are you doing just that window of your, or I should say, your own films are falling under that blanket, or are you actually producing productions with other individuals too?
So far we've only produced a couple shorts in the feature film through Blanket Fort Films, which actually got its title because that was one of the things I loved to do as a kid was build blanket forts. And when we were trying to figure out a name for the company, I wanted because I was just looking at all of these film companies' names, and they were they were just kind of just took themselves way too seriously. It was Cutting Edge Pictures, or all of these kind of really serious names. And I was I don't want it's serious to me, but I want people to know that it's something that I enjoy to do. And I feel like Blanket Fort Films, it's just kind of just totally gets my personality. It's a fort, but it's also all playtime.
Well, yes, and I was just going to say, I kind of figured that there was some sort of meaning to that, but that's cool. That's very, very cool. I like that quite a bit, actually. Okay, so before we get into talking about Frogmarch, obviously you have done, and I want to talk about Small Talk, actually, because I've not seen that, and I know that it exists. And if you wouldn't mind, please give a short summation for us of what Small Talk is and when you did it, and also is it accessible online or other places where people can watch it or see it?
I'm fairly certain Small Talk is on YouTube. I'll have to send you the link so you can watch it. I don't know if I could describe it without completely ruining it.
Oh, no, then don't do it. You know what I mean? I just
try.
thought if people are listening and they'll be intrigued, they'll want to see it.
Right. So, but it's basically about. I could do this without ruining it. It's basically about how children talk about things that they don't really understand, and just kind of the kids' logic of hearing. The kid's logic of words. One of the things is one of these kids in the movie asks another kid, or he says that his uncle's a pharmacist, and another kid goes, "What is that? What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, that means he works on a farm." And that's just such a kid thing to do, where we just take these sounds and just group them into these simple little narratives in our head. So a lot of the film just has to do with the way that we understand things as kids.
Sure. No, I agree with you 100%. And so, folks, go ahead. I would go on YouTube, obviously, or certainly I'm on social media so I can make an update on this if you ever happen to come across it or whatever. Because I know some filmmakers go to Amazon or, Vimeo, or else you can go view it on YouTube, like you were mentioning, Netflix for some people. So just keep us posted on that. And I saw a notation about this other project, Mind Your Own Business. So is that something that you started and finished, didn't finish? What's the status of that? Because that was a little unclear.
So the Mind Your Own Business was a documentary I made right out of college because my family owns a donut shop in Fairfield, Connecticut. It's called Donut Inn.
Right.
And so it was all about kind of big businesses taking over small businesses. One of the things that really inspired me to do it is a Dunkin' Donuts opened up 7 feet away from them.
Oh, my God.
And, told them that they would put them out of business in, 6 months. So it's just well, that's an aggressive thing to say. So that was just, it was just kind of a documentary about, and then it kind of got too ambitious, so we kept going through iterations of it and recutting it and adding stuff, and eventually it got too big.
Got it. Okay, I see what you mean. Because, like I said, it was a little unclear to me, and I thought to myself, okay, is this something that we want to cover? Is it out there, or whatever have you? But I'm like, okay, fine. Now, I have 2 questions. These are the 2 most important questions of the interview. If you don't get this right, I'm going to hang up on you. Just kidding. But they are so important, it's ridiculous. These are questions that have been pondered in my house all weekend long. So don't screw this up. You got to get it right, Jonathan. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, you got to put your thinking cap on. You ready?
Okay.
So here's my question to you, because you're very smart, and this has become a poll question, basically, which is this. I want you to explain to me if you think it's possible for the Incredible Hulk to use a fidget spinner. Because I have yet to get an answer, and I'm getting frustrated. Because this is how my mind works. I literally thought the other day, well, how is the Incredible Hulk going to use a fidget spinner? So, do you think the Incredible Hulk can use a fidget spinner? And if so, how? Because look at it.
I think absolutely. I think if Tony Stark built a fidget spinner out of titanium or adamantium steel that makes Wolverine's claws, I think we could make a fidget spinner for the Incredible Hulk, but it would have to be custom made. I think.
God. Well, my God, considering his hands are 8,000, I mean, it's like, look at his, he's like, oh, I don't know, I have a thing about the Hulk. I have a lot of anger, issues right now, so I think I can relate to the Hulk. Like my son, my son Curran will be like, don't you just want a Hulk smash sometimes? And I'm like, yes, every hour on the hour lately. That's probably not healthy. But I do. I feel like I want a Hulk smash. So the Hulk is a big thing. Now, our other poll question, I had to start this new one. I used to ask guests the same question every time they'd come on. Well, now I don't have to anymore because I now know Michael Madsen. Because the question used to be, now I just know you have Michael Madsen's cell phone number and you're going to give it to me. And then see, they'd lie to me, get me excited to be like, yes. And nobody did. It took like a year and a half, and finally, oh, yeah. So Michael Madsen is one of my top 5 interviews of all time I want to do, and now I get to do him. But there are 4 more. So I'm going to ask you about this person, and the correct answer to this question is going to be yes, or at least in some version of yes. Okay, so here we go. Because you're important, you're a director, you know lots of actors.
Okay.
I know you're going to say, I can connect you with Cher. Here it comes. Right now, I'm waiting.
So Cher is the person we're talking about?
Yes, Jonathan.
Okay.
Because I said there are 5 people on the list, and so if we take Michael off, that leaves 4 on the list. And so I don't need a contact for Michael Madsen anymore. However, I seem to be striking out and getting this interview with Cher. So now I thought, let's just start asking my guests, because I'm sure that you have contact with her, like an email, cell phone, you're friends with her kid. Anything?
I am not friends with Cher's kids, but I will scavenge and just dig through all of my contacts to see if there's absolutely anyone who knows Cher to get you contact.
I'm sure that you have Cher,
I will not
in your
sleep
back,
until I know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows Cher.
Oh, my God, wouldn't that be amazing? I was so mad because I wanted to try to get to L.A. this weekend because she's playing in Vegas right now. And I've seen her play, like, I think 3 or 4 times. Yeah, to me, everybody that comes on my show is a celebrity, and I've said that before, and I believe that. And then there are just some that everyone idolizes. And even for me, I get to interview all these amazing celebrities, but these to me are like top tier, and there are personal reasons for all those. But Cher is just iconic in so many ways, and I know she gets a lot of hype about, oh, what's all that plastic surgery? You know what? It's hard to get old people. I'm not a plastic surgery fan, but I'm like, you know what? She looks great for her age. Costume changes, voice is terrific. She's amazing. So yeah. So you didn't exactly flunk those questions, but you didn't really get 100% on that. So check mark for Jonathan. Just kidding, folks. But I had to throw that out there because you never know. Okay, now, one of the things that folks may not know about you is that you did this little film. This film is going to be the Art of Live Film Festival, and I'm so excited because I screened this film along with 2 other individuals because I refused to screen. At the time that I accepted your film, we were not friends, and we are now, and so I was able to screen it along with 2 other people, and it got accepted into my film festival called the Frogmarch. Now, most of us do projects or put things together because we have a great story. In your particular case, your story is obviously very relevant to you and so many others. So let's backtrack a little bit and start off. And let's talk about this. Obviously, to those of you that are listening and that don't know, Frogmarch deals with a number of different topics, but it does cover in a very, very heavy manner drug addiction and intervention and things along those lines. So we want to start off by talking a little bit about Jonathan, because Jonathan wasn't the man that he is right now has been through quite a number of different things in his life. So I'd like you to talk to your audience about whatever you're comfortable with and talking about your past history with drug usage and how you got to a point where you were able to get to a place where you were saying no instead of yes all the time.
I will try my best to tell that story. I've tried to tell it a lot, but there's a lot to it, so I'll see if I can do it in a concise manner on the radio.
All right, just do your best.
So I started drinking when I was 11 years old. Not like consistently, but that's the first time I had a drink and actually got drunk was on Christmas Eve when I was 11 years old. And ever since then, I don't know, I always just we had a bar in our basement that I would always just kind of dive into and drink. And that kind of, as I kind of got deeper into my adolescence and teenage years, I started drinking more because it was more of a social thing with kids that I knew. And then it became I just kind of fell in with a group of people on the wrong mission, but, the same mission, which was drinking and getting high all the time, which eventually led to me dropping out of high school and just kind of spending a few years getting into crime and drug use. And then eventually that resulted, or kind of ended up at rock bottom with me trying to commit suicide, which wound me up in the hospital. And then I don't even know if that was rock bottom. I mean, in retrospect, it looks like that. But it didn't. It took me a couple more years to kind of look back and fully realize the weight of what was happening to me. And that was the time when I stopped drinking, and I went through detox, and then started to attend AA meetings. And I've been sober for 11 years and 11 months.
Look at that. So questions relative to that, obviously, because we live in a society nowadays where clearly the opiate addiction in particular has become intense, meaning to a large degree, large volume usage in a number of different places in the country. So I guess you would be not necessarily an expert, but obviously one of the ideal people to ask in terms of, in your opinion, what do you feel is spiking this surge of addiction, if you will? Obviously, it's clearly addiction, but it's never been this high an amount, or maybe we didn't realize that so many people were using. What do you think accounts for all of that, or what do you think? How do we as individuals try to take a stance on getting people not to use if we can't figure out why they're using in the first place? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I mean, I always kind of preface these questions because when I work with inner city kids about this stuff all the time, and I always get a parent or a teacher asking me this question, and I always preface it with, I can't be an expert on any kind of addiction except for my own. As far as any kind of like, yeah, I don't really know. Like, it's interesting to see this, like, the places that it's happening in, because I feel like a lot of them, like I heard, one of the biggest opiate problems is in Maine or New Hampshire, and it's just interesting to me that it's such like a rural area is like experiencing this spike of opiate use. So it's like, you know, I mean, I can't really put a finger on the pulse of that and kind of get it under control, but it's just kind of, it's one of those things where I feel like the first step maybe possibly is because it's just kind of understanding it. And I think a lot of people that I talk to are always surprised to hear my story and find out where I'm from, and they think, I think the misunderstanding of it is that, you know, the people who use drugs are from inner cities and they're poor and they come from a specific background, and it's not true because it's like everywhere. It's airline pilots, it's, you know, brain surgeons, and it's people who are CEOs of companies. It's an illness that affects everyone and everywhere. And I think the moment that we kind of turn our back on it is when it's going to get the best of us. And I feel like if more people are just kind of, if we could kind of broaden our definition worldview to kind of encompass like how ubiquitous it is, maybe that's a step in the right direction, because I feel like everyone feels like they might be immune to it or it's too like far away from them. And so it's kind of like one of those things where you don't think your kid's using, and then, you know, you find out that they are. Like, I know people close to me and my family who I never, you know, it's funny because even after going through, like, inactive recovery for 11 years, there are people that I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like, he wouldn't be using, and then I find out that he is, and I'm like, oh, well, that's shocking, and I should have known better. So it's, I feel like it's one of those things where we just kind of have to be on watch and be more careful and cognizant.
Right. That's a perfect segue into what I was going to ask you, which is this, because clearly we as adults, especially those of us who, and you don't necessarily have to have folks' kids, meaning that you could have sisters or siblings or close relatives or parents, etc. I guess talking to you, for instance, because as you said, you can speak to your own addiction, for instance, were there things that you wish that people would have noticed or that, you know, we should be more cognizant of, or are there certain triggers that we should be in our mental brain just saying to ourselves, okay, for future reference, when we're around other people, watch for this, look for this? Is there a telltale sort of, do you know what I mean? Any sort of trigger or something that you think maybe folks need to know about?
I mean, I don't know. For me, like, I've been someone who's never been comfortable in my own skin, and I've always been insecure and not very honest. I'd always kind of be lying to kind of get like the better benefit of the doubt from people. But I feel like one of the things that I have noticed are like, kids who are more expressive. It's interesting now seeing kids who are really eloquent and expressive and outgoing, and how like they're not the kids who are experimenting with drugs. So I feel like there's something about kids who are kind of like stuck in their own way and being quiet, and that's not like a broad thought. I mean, some kids can just be shy and not talking, but I think like one of the things that I always kind of notice about a lot of the kids that I work with are that they're very quiet and not very comfortable talking about themselves or what's going on. And whether that's just kind of a hunch. I mean, doctors will tell you that is a telltale sign. I mean, I don't know, but I've just noticed that. So I feel like the more you can get kids comfortable in talking, I mean, that's at least a step in the right direction for having a conversation.
Gotcha. Now, I, of course, have been off of cigarettes now. I stopped smoking a little over a year ago, and I had quit before. I quit for 4 years. I went back on, and then obviously I went back off again, and now I'm confident enough to say, yeah, I'm not going back. That's it. And it is a form of addiction, even though it's not as deadly necessarily. I mean, lung cancer, yes, but meaning some of these things, some of the drugs, some of the stuff that's out in the street nowadays is far more lethal, in my opinion. So my question to you is, to those that are listening in that struggle sometimes with maybe I'm drinking a little more than I should, or I'm using things that I shouldn't more often than not, what would your advice be to somebody to try to help them with maintaining sobriety every day? Because it is an everyday battle, is it not?
Yeah, no, it is, and there's a lot to be said for that, taking it one day at a time. Like, it's, we think about how we need to get to the end of the week, and we don't. We just need to get through the next 5 minutes, and then after that, worry about the 5 minutes after that. I think one of the things that always did me in when I tried to do my first attempts to really stay sober for a prolonged period of time was I'd always tell I'd wake up, I'd be extremely hungover, I'd be sick to my stomach, and I would be, or I'd have done something horrible while I was drinking, and I'd wake up and I'd say I'm never going to drink again. And it's so interesting, how quickly I started drinking again after that. And so then I started telling myself, I think in my mind I started convincing myself, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start drinking for the rest of my life. And the idea of me drinking for the rest of my life just was that's not something I want to do. But it's as soon as I said never, for some reason it just seemed that's too long of a time to not be drinking, and I'd be drinking the next day. So I just have to be more honest with myself, being if I drink, I'm going to be drinking every day for the rest of my life, and that's not something I want.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to, because I say this oftentimes to people. It either eventually does come down to I either want this or I don't want this, meaning, I'd have every excuse under the sun. Oh, my God, I had a terrible day, so I have to go and have a cigarette. Or this happened and I have to have a cigarette. But it doesn't fix anything. Your brain is telling you that it's going to fix it, but in reality, this is not a fix-all anything. And I think it really is kind of you're giving up your power and basically saying, I'm powerless over this, but I am choosing to not use this. I almost feel like if you keep bucking it, you know what I mean? No, I need to do this, You need to sit yourself down and realize that you eventually don't need to do this or use this anymore. I think that in a lot of ways has something to do with that. I'm sure you would concur, obviously. And you should be congratulated for this. I think some of the strongest and biggest heroes never get enough ongoing encouragement, and nor are they told often enough that even though they might have made one very large mistake, they've made up with it or made up for it in 50 different ways. And that is so very true for you. So I hope you know that, truly.
I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you.
Thank you.
So thank you
I guess oh, you're welcome. Now, I'm going to assume that your parents are alive and well.
My mother is. My father, I'm pretty sure is. He left when I was young.
I gotcha. I understand. And the reason I ask that is because obviously, of course, one of the things that we like to talk about here, especially with this dynamic, is clearly, obviously, you have parents, and those of us that have children at home, clearly, did they find out on their own? Did you tell them? And then how was the reaction, and how did they cope with dealing with this? Because obviously families deal with it too.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I was going through making amends and confronting people about my addiction, my mother and my sister were two people who, and this is their decision. I'm not entirely sure I understand it. But I mean, it's, I respect it. Is that they just they just kind of think it was not as bad as it was, and then it's just one of those reactions that I hear more and more about is just the kind of denial about it. So that's how it was dealt with on my end. But I know that that's not the case with everybody. Yeah, it's interesting.
That is a little different, actually, because I've talked to the people and the reactions. Well, every parent's going to have a different reaction, of course, and, clearly, there are some that I've heard say, actually, become on one side of the fence where they're ultra worried and constantly panicked and thinking every single moment that this person is using and that they have to put them in a bubble constantly. Then you have some, of course, that are, walking around and like your scenario, which is, okay, I see it's a problem, but maybe it just wasn't like this or this or this. And so they kind of convince themselves that it is whatever they perceive it to be. And then you have a category of parents out there who, you find out and you feel very helpless. And, of course, we as parents, most of us especially, if you have a scenario where you have a child come home and they have a situation like this where this, parents are built to believe that, we protect our children and so this shouldn't happen. And so I guess my question to you is obviously if there are parents listening out there or individuals that have been affected by addiction, what advice would you give to these parents in terms of, helping their child cope with things, or are there things that they can do?
I mean, it's a tough needle to thread. Is that the expression?
Exactly. I think that's what it is.
Because it's interesting. Because you wanna be cautious and careful and be kind of overprotective. Because there's definitely something that's needed like that. But there's also this element of like people need to feel like they're trusted and like that you believe in them enough to kind of let them walk on their own. So it's this really interesting balance between those two schools of thought. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with being overprotective. I feel like you always err on the side of caution. But like for what it's worth, I feel like a lot of addicts, we're an insecure breed. And so to always feel like we have people watching us makes us feel like we can't do something on our own. So it's like if there's a happy medium to be reached there, if there's some way to just kind of support someone without making them feel like you're, over their shoulder watching them, it's an empowering feeling.
And I guess the other question that I should ask in terms of, because you're now recovered and obviously you've gone on to do this film and to accomplish many different things, do you still ever find yourself, whether it's your friends or people that are close to you, that watch you're talking about, do you ever feel like sometimes people are kind of just, have they come to terms with the fact that they can trust you and they know that you're not going to relapse, or at least are they prepared if by some chance somewhere down the road all of a sudden Jonathan does a slip and fall?
So it's interesting. I feel like a lot of the people have. I feel like, I mean, as far as my perception, they could all be like huddled in the corner somewhere being like, I don't trust that guy at all. But I feel like they trust me. There are a few people that I don't see as often. Like, there's close friends you don't see except for like every few years or something. That there will always be these little instances where, you get the idea that they don't fully trust you. And there's kind of the reaction to that is like you kind of want to get upset, but then you're like, oh wait, there's absolutely a good reason why they don't trust me. Like I installed that, that's mine, and so I can't get mad at them. So I'm like, that's fine. It's just going to take some more time to earn their trust, and that's okay. And they have every right to be protective of themselves, and I should just be grateful that they're still in my lives.
Yes, I understand. Now, when you were doing, obviously, folks, we'll talk about the film, which we mentioned, but let's say it again, the Frogmarch is the name of it. And obviously you acted as both writer and director, and this is your acting debut. So 2 questions relative to the acting portion of it, which is, first of all, why did you pick this particular film to debut in and didn't star in something else first? And then secondly, I'd like you to explain, because you are not playing, and I don't think this gives away too much, but you're obviously not playing the addict in question here, which I found was interesting that you did that.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Just refresh my memory on the first question too.
No, that's okay. Because you chose this as an acting debut versus like some people who will go off and just audition for certain roles. And I mean, I get it; it's your film, but I just was curious if there was any other reason besides that you chose this one for your acting debut.
So originally I wasn't intending to play the part, and I had this really close friend of mine who I wrote the role for, and I thought he'd do a great job.
Sure.
And then it was his first real big acting experience, and he had always had dreams of being an actor, and I knew he could act because he was very good at imitations and just like getting into characters, and he could just pretend to like have a British accent all day. And so he just really enjoyed that. So I was like, listen, like I know you've always wanted to act. I feel like this would be a good opportunity for you. I'd be here with you, so it's not like you'd be working with a stranger, and we can kind of ease you into it, and we could rehearse and get you comfortable. And at some point, towards the end of the process, he didn't feel comfortable and confident enough, so he kind of stepped out. And I was sitting there going, okay, I feel like I don't know if I could just start this relationship with somebody new that I don't know well. And then there was this part of me that has always felt like, because the character in the film is very much, I mean, all of the characters in the film are aspects of my personality, but that's one that character in particular is someone that represents like a part of me and things that I've done that I'm not entirely proud of, and I felt like it was kind of cowardly to have someone pretend to be me and not kind of stand there and take the brunt of it, or like to take accountability for it. And I felt like that was part of it. Was actually very cathartic for me because I felt like I was taking responsibility on like a whole other level. And plus, it's the character that I know, and I've always had ambitions of being an actor. So that was all of that kind of influenced my decision to step into it.
Gotcha. So how do you think you did it from the actor perspective? I mean, obviously I've seen the film and I judged you, but I mean, obviously we all have to look at that ourselves and make an assessment. I mean, do you think you aced it? Were you happy in meeting your own expectation as it relates to your acting part in this?
I think I didn't. I think if I had to judge the role overall, I did an adequate job. There are a couple scenes where I wish I had done something else, but from what I hear, every actor feels that way. But as a director, it's you can't. It's one thing like as a director, I feel like I got what I wanted. As an actor, I feel like I could have done something else.
No, I understand. Sense. I do. And we want to do a huge shout out to Matthew Flynn because he's part of the movie. Obviously, my new Facebook friend, and of course, he's such a cool guy. I like him.
He's a great guy.
So, question about the casting in general, actually. So when you set out to cast this movie after you had written it and you're like, okay, well, it's time to put that ensemble cast together, was it important to you to utilize people that had been in a similar boat as yourself? Meaning, obviously, if you're going to do a film relative to addiction, did everybody need to have experience with that, or was it irrelevant to you? I was just curious.
It was irrelevant to me. When I worked with Matt a couple times before, and I had written the role for him, but it was interesting because I sent him the script, and neither of us had any idea that the other was in recovery. And this is something he speaks about openly and publicly, so I'm not outing him at all. But it was irrelevant. I mean, as far as it was important to have a dialogue with the entire cast and to talk about things. And I encouraged them to go to open AA meetings. I'm not sure if they actually did, but to kind of get a sense of it and to come to me or Matt with any kind of questions they had about addiction. And we had always had like an open dialogue about it, and we treated it with a lot of integrity and respect.
Nice, very nice. Okay, I was curious about that, certainly. And when you sat down and you wrote it and then going through this whole process, etc., was it difficult for you emotionally and mentally? Because I can imagine that this brings up a lot of things that you may want to forget.
Yeah. So when I started writing it in like 2006, I had been sober for like a year, and the idea came to me because I knew I wanted to I'd been sober for a year, and when you're sober for a year, you feel like you've conquered like Charlemagne and taken over the world and went and walked on the moon. And I was like, oh, God, I want to make a movie about addiction. And then I sat down and I started writing it, and I was like, oh, I'm totally not ready to deal with any of this. And I put it in a drawer for 5 or 6 years. And then eventually these characters started talking in my head, and then they started to have these really good, real conversations that people have. And I said, okay, now I have to start writing this before I forget all this stuff. Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
Now, folks, just so you know, to date, obviously, you've received awards from the Real Recovery Film Festival, New Hope Film Festival, Creation International Film Festival, and Depth of Field Film Festival. So clearly, most of the people listening in, if you don't go to Artists Live Film Festival in New York City or some of the other film festival events that you might have taking place, at what given point in time do you feel that the regular, average, ordinary person will get an opportunity to be able to view your film?
Well, we're coming to the end of our festival run, so after that we sit down, we decide, there's kind of two schools of thought. I mean, we could try to, sell it, actually there's kind of three. One is to sell it to a distributor, try to get on like Netflix or an Amazon so people could stream it anywhere. The other idea is, one of the things we really like is outside of festivals, we've kind of put on private recovery screenings with like groups of people in random areas. We did one in Massachusetts, we did it in New York, we did it in Jersey, and we just had this really strong response and these great conversations afterwards in this kind of communal settings. And so we're wondering if maybe we should take it on the road and just put more screenings like that together and build a fan base under it. But no matter what, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, at the very least, it'll be on Vimeo for everybody to watch. So at some point by the end of the year, it'll be somewhere. And you can keep up with us at thefrogmarch.com.
Yes, we'll get to that at the end. I get to tell everybody I'm like, hey, that's awesome. I just wanted to find out what the thought process is as far as that goes for that. And clearly, in case I didn't mention for the 15th time, because I've been promoting it, and I will be promoting it in about 100 interviews for the next month. It will be at Artists Live Film Festival. Do we have any determination yet on who's doing the Q&A for your film, by the way? Since you're here,
I know me and Matt are. I don't know if any of the cast members have committed like solidly yet. They're a hard bunch to wrangle.
You bet. And before I forget, before we talk about your new the new film, The Suggestion Box, to those that are listening in, because like I said, I just gave the broad strokes, meaning that you deal with addiction and intervention, but just give kind of a backdrop, sort of a teaser for folks on what Frogmarch is really about.
Yeah, I feel like the Frogmarch is about it's about a group of people who get together to welcome home a friend who's been in prison for reasons we don't understand, for reasons we don't know. They've been in prison for 5 years, and a small group of friends gathers to welcome them home. And a few hours into that, we realize that the real reason for the gathering is a drug intervention for one of the other characters. And it's a film it's really about drug addiction. It's kind of like told through the prism of drug addiction, but it's mostly about friendship and social responsibility and, all of these, kind of taking accountability for our mistakes, and it's about relationships. And the two things that my goals were to make a film about drug addiction that didn't have any drug use in it, and the other thing was to make a film about a lot of people who love each other but never actually say the words "I love you," so you never actually hear it in the film.
Sure. So don't you guys just want to run right out and see that? We're going to watch a film that says I love you without really saying it. I love that concept. In fact, I developed a concept like that for a film I'm doing, and it only has 100 words in it. So imagine that. I had to show how people love each other in 100 words or less. It was a challenge, let me tell you. Life's full of challenges. But one of the other big reasons he came on, besides the fact that I was terribly excited just to talk to him because I like him so much, is that he has a new project, which he is now developing Indie GoGo Campaign for. It's called The Suggestion Box, and time is limited on this because I see the end date is actually August 29th. So first off, The Suggestion Box. Now, I want to talk about this because this is one of my panels at the film festival, and because you are a director and you're using Indie GoGo, tell us a little bit about this, because we live in a day and age, of course, where we're not all rich, believe it or not, which means if you're going to finance a film, the money's got to come from somewhere unless you're going to pay for absolutely everything. And obviously nobody I know can afford that. So talk to folks a little bit about what it's like in today's society in getting a film financed, because you can't just call up Warner Brothers or whomever or Lionsgate and they're just going to be like, sure, Jonathan, we trust you. Here you go. Here's $1 million. So in light of that, how challenging really is it, and be realistic about this in terms of getting the amount that you need to make a film from start to finish? Because even when you cut corners, it's not cheap, is it?
No, it's never cheap. It's always ridiculously expensive. Even with the advent of all of the technology, it's still ridiculously expensive. And it's kind of scary. I'm kind of grateful to be a filmmaker now, because I couldn't imagine in the day and age when there wasn't digital video, how ridiculously expensive it was to shoot a film on film, a movie on film. And so, yeah, the hard part with financing is that once you nothing comes without strings attached. So once you ask someone for money, they basically, more often than not, want to make sure that their money is going to a project that they sign off on. So, you know, there will be instances where you'll go to somebody for money and they'll want their son to be one of the main characters, or they'll want their girlfriend to get like a lead role, or, you know, there's always, they want like a product placement for the company that they run to be, like it's always kind of these different kind of personal favors for the financing. So it's very difficult. And plus, even when it's not that, when you go to like studios kind of always find the need to just tinker and tool away and reshape things, because I feel like I don't know what it is. I guess to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. It's like they need to, because they're putting money into it, feel like they're actually doing something to it. So you'll hear all sorts of things, like they want the first act to be rewritten, or they want the ending to be changed, and it changes what the story is. That's why you'll see like even like well-known actors like now will be doing film campaigns on Indie GoGo, because they still have their hands are tied with studios, because studios still want to just change everything about the film that they're making.
Well, then my question to you is this, because I find this extraordinary. One of the coolest things about the suggestion box that I noticed on the campaign was he has a set dollar amount, and then after that set dollar amount, he actually is footing the bill for the rest of it, which is awesome, because most of the time when a filmmaker does something like that, you know, an Indie GoGo campaign or a crowd fundraiser or whatever, Kickstarter, everybody else is footing the bill. You know, like you're coming up with the whole budget and there it is right there. So you're to be commended for that. I think that's amazing, because most filmmakers I've noticed don't do that actually, or aren't in a position to be able to do that, which I think is cool. Now, tell us the actual set amount that you were asking for from folks, and how we're looking at this point in time in terms of meeting your goal.
So it's, I think, $1,500 for the set goal that we set. Now it's at $500 or $600 we've raised, so we're like a third of the way there.
Okay, and you're running out of time because we only have like a week or so
left.
left.
So we have until next week.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. I gotcha. And, of course, the anticipated idea here, folks, is that he would start shooting in October of this year, and then having a completion somewhere in early 2018, depending on, of course, editing and other factors, because we all know that things weren't built in a day. Well, some people don't realize that things weren't built in a day. So if I'm sitting here right now and I'm listening to Jonathan and I say, all right, well, Jonathan's a nice guy, but you need to give us 3 reasons why we should invest in this film, what would those be?
I think it's a film that tells a really honest and personal story about relationships that we don't normally see, because I think a lot of like romantic comedies aren't really like serious about it. So it's a film that you'll watch and you'll be like, oh my God, I've totally been there, and that's something I've done, and it'll make you want to cry, but it'll also totally make you laugh, because we're kind of insane with relationships.
Sure.
And I feel like it's just there's a lot of really great rewards on the site that you can get. We're giving away some breakup mixtapes and tickets to the wrap party and tickets to the premiere, and you get a digital copy of the film itself. So there's that. Like everybody gets their money worth. So it's not like you just give your money and then at the end of the day there's that. And then the third reason is to support the arts, which is we have to keep that alive, because now more than ever I feel like, you know, with things that are going on in the world, we kind of need people to be able to share their opinions about the world, and I feel like not a lot of that's happening as things become more commercialized.
You betcha. And, of course, if I understand this correctly, the suggestion box is also another scenario where you've created a film that discusses interpersonal relationships on a deeper level, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. It's a theme, I guess, with my films.
Yeah, I'm noticing that you have this theme here, actually, of course. And can you tell them anything without giving away too much in terms of what they can expect to see out of this film?
Yeah, it's about a couple that's recently broke up. They're in their late 20s, and you know, they were kind of a toxic train wreck, and the girl returns to the guy's apartment because she's trying to reclaim a sex tape that they had made together, but it's not actually, you never see the sex tape. It's not like a big discussion. It's just her reason for being there, because there's something that he has that she doesn't feel comfortable with him having, and it's kind of like symbolism for like all the like information that we give people that we don't really trust that they have once we kind of end the relationship. We're like, this person knows way too much about us. So that's basically, so she goes and she doesn't want to leave without having this deeply personal thing in his possession, and he doesn't want to let her leave because he basically wants to try to win her back. So it's this power dynamic and how all of that kind of just causes them to revisit and put each other through this meat grinder of who did who and what and went wrong in the relationship.
Gotcha. I understand. Now, with Indie GoGo, because correct me, this is one platform I don't have a lot of experience in. So, for instance, let's say we go a week down the road, and let's say you get $1,400 and not $1,500. Does that mean that you don't get anything, or how does that work exactly? It's a little confusing to me how this whole thing works.
Yeah, so there's I think there's two different options. One of them is Kickstarter, I know you can't get any of the money unless you make your goal. With Indiegogo, you make your money no matter what, but I think it's a percentage, because Indiegogo gets like pennies on the dollar for everything that's contributed. I mean, that's how they kind of stay in business. Right. But I don't know, if you meet your goal, it's like they get less of a percentage than if you don't reach your goal.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you're talking about. I got it. Because it's a little confusing to me as far as that goes. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And I guess my only other question to you is, will you be acting in this one, or are you going to venture off and stay out of your own films, or do other films acting-wise? I'm just looking at the acting perspective, because I already know you're writing that. I
am acting in this, just because it's something that's, I love acting. Sure. And I like to think that I'm good at it. And I've received some pretty positive feedback. And this is another instance where it's easier to, I think I wouldn't be as I wouldn't be as apt to act in my own stuff if I could afford another actor. It just saves a lot of money and stuff, but it's also personal roles. And I'd also love to act in things that other people are making, but I can't seem to get into an audition or get someone to give me a role. So I guess I'll just be employing myself in the acting.
And like forever and ever and ever, I'll cast myself over and over and over and over again.
I'll be like, what do you have?
Because I can't. Yeah. Actually, that's not necessary. Well, we won't go there right now. Not enough time in the day to discuss something like that.
Fair.
Definitely.
Fair.
So it's one of those things. Now, I have to ask you this other question, because we forgot to talk about the big essential thing, which is, of course, writing, clearly. A lot of people listening in are of the writing background, and that's my one passion. As far as I'm going to make films, yes, but writing is really where my heart is. And so for me, I guess my one question to you about the writing aspect of things is, because you have written films and then you have written non-films, et cetera, out of all the different writing genres that you do, which one is your favorite and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. You saved the hard question for last. You gave me this false sense of security.
That works. Yeah.
No, I don't know if I could. Like, I love them all. I really enjoy the challenge of writing a book. Like, right now I'm working on this epic Western that I've been writing for a couple of years. And the cool thing about that is it's a very personal experience. Like, you're by yourself in a room writing, and it's just you and paper. And, like, there's just something very cathartic and personal, and you kind of just go on this vision quest writing this piece. That's really great. And then the other thing is, the thing I love about film is it's just more of like a collaborative experience. You get feedback. People are like, this scene doesn't make sense. I don't like the way this is written. What do you think? And I like that too. So it's these two different, kind of depends on the day whether you want to work with a group of people or if you just want to go like down this rabbit hole by yourself.
Gotcha. That's a really cool way of explaining it. That is absolutely awesome.
Thanks.
Well, look at that. We have gone 1 hour and 20 minutes. Isn't that wild how it goes so fast? I've been seeing this more and more. Like, it goes really quickly. Well, plus, when I tried to tell Jonathan this, and my listening audience, I've said this about 800 times, that the more of an affinity I have for an individual that comes on my show, and the more that I adore their work and them, there is a high expectation level placed on myself to make sure I don't screw it up. and I hope that I haven't screwed it up because I'm about as unhappy as I'm going to get. So I'm like, God, I hope this interview goes well, considering I feel like I couldn't feel any worse than I do at this very moment. So hopefully I was able to pull it off with great style. You know, there's 3 other things that we have to do. I'm going to read off all the different ways to find you, and just remind me if I forgot any of them, if you would. To those of you listening in, this is how we find Jonathan. Oh, yes, I'm going to make you say your last name because I'm afraid. I was going to say Jonathan D'Ambrosio?
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it.
Okay, so you're a Dago.
Yes.
No wonder we get along so well. Okay. So now that you said that, I'm not going to keep screwing up over and over and over again. So the first film we talked about, which is the Frogmarch, is the website www.thefrogmarch.com. It also has a page on Facebook, again, same name, the Frogmarch. Jonathan himself, actually, he is JonathanD'Ambrosio.com, and that's spelled, just so you know, Jonathan, and then it's D'Ambrosio. He is on LinkedIn. He is on YouTube. Your Twitter handle shows @John, that's Jon, and then D'Ambro. And then today, the film we talked about, the suggestion box, I've already posted up all over the place under Gad's Country, and that's on IndieGoGo.com, and the name of it being the suggestion box. The one thing I want to ask you about is, do you want to mention your Instagram? Because I know you said that you weren't participating at the moment, so I don't want to bring up a can of worms if...
No, you're fine. It's just I recently signed on to Instagram, but it's Mr. Literature, and maybe I'll reactivate it. It's just I get obsessed and I'm always on my phone, so I'm like, all right, I need to deactivate this.
Oh, no, I understand completely. I do, definitely, without a doubt. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is, did you know, because I don't know if you listen to any of my other shows, but if you listen to my shows, I'm infamous for giving surprises. I do it all the time. I completely catch people off guard. So I have some surprises for you. I have some surprises for you. And why? Because what would life be without a bunch of surprises in your life? I think it would be awesome. First of all, I want to address that talk that you were saying about this whole business of, you know, you're going to have to keep casting yourself because you can't meet people, et cetera, et cetera. I just wanted to remind you of the fact that being part of my film festival, it looks like there'll be a total of 20-some other directors that you're going to come in contact with on a regular basis. Plus, some of the attendees are actually directors and filmmakers that you do not know. So I'll definitely make it a point and a priority to introduce you to everybody that I know that's casting or will be casting in the near future. And one of the ones that's in the film festival, John Gallagher, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's one of my dear friends, and he has a solid reputation and works with a number of different actors. To me, he's the best of the best in New York City. So we'll have to get you aligned with all of these 20 other people, and then we'll get you cast. See how that works? I mean,
absolutely.
You just walk into a room, and there you go. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm hoping that this will kind of, outside of making my own personal contribution, will kind of poke things up. What I want you to do for the next week is tell anybody and everybody that you know that for anybody that donates anything from $10 up, to you that is, by the way, anything from $10 up, tell them that I will give them, and this will be exclusive to New York City because, indies are broke as a joke, especially me. $10 up and above. Tell them that and give them a time frame, and that's entirely up to you because it's your campaign. And then at the end of that time frame, you're going to pick one name out of a hat, tell them who the name is, and then that person will have a press pass for the entire weekend. They can attend everything, including the celebrity event, all the panels, all the movies, everything for free on my dime, as long as they contribute to your campaign.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Then, oh
that's
my
amazing.
God, I'm like, is he going to die or something?
No, that's amazing.
I just have the ability to do that. No, I can see you smiling on the other end of the phone. I'm like, literally, don't get that excited about it. It's like one of those things. So, there's that. Those are your little surprises from me to you, only because I always feel like it's a good idea to be able to surprise my guests because then they're not expecting it, and it's just a cool thing. I mean, I think there should always be a bonus to participating in something like an endeavor that I do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. So there's that. Now, the last part of my show is unscripted. It's the only thing that I don't write. And I do this on purpose. I purposely don't write this part because that means it comes straight from my heart. These are personal and professional observations of you that I think are important for folks to know because this way, if they know a bit about you beyond this interview, and these are just my thoughts, they'll realize that you indeed are a person that they should invest their time in and their energy in and somebody that they need to know. So this is unscripted, and I said to myself today that I'm not going to cry, but I can't guarantee anything because I'm pretty sad to begin with. But like I said, it's hard, folks, because, you know, I've been talking to this gentleman for a while now, and these are the impressions that I have. The first thing that I have wanted to say, and I think I've kind of reinforced this on more than one occasion, is that I gravitate to individuals that are both creative but have also what I call climbed out of their own ugliness, so to speak. We all have a past history, and we all have a place that we all come from. My place isn't so pretty that I came from, and obviously there was a point in time where you were stuck somewhere where you really didn't belong. And so when I say that I'm in awe of you, what I really mean by that is that I have absolutely no idea how incredibly wonderful it must feel to be so strong and so solid and so positive about yourself that you're able to conquer such a thing as addiction. And for you, I think it's a testament of the fact that you have been able to live and breathe and survive all day long, day in and day out, and be creative and find your soulmate and go on to do all these wonderful things with having such a horrid thing on your back. So first off, I commend you for your for being you and being strong enough and wise enough and smart enough to be able to know that it wasn't good for you and to take a very, very bad place and turn it into a wonderful place where people walk in and see this cinematic genius that you've created. It's fabulous and amazing, and it talks about who you are and what you are. And so first off, you should know that. Second of all, the very first time that I said to Jonathan, yes, I'm going to put you into my film festival, he sent me a note. And the very first thing that I saw in the note was a very lovely statement that said, I want to hug you. The first thing he said was, I'm going to hug you when I meet you. And I was so very moved that somebody would think so very highly of me without even having met me first, that they actually would want to have physical contact with me. I thought that was absolutely awesome. So the second thing that you all should know is that one movie has generated a very strong and a very sweet and a very surreal friendship for me, and that is something that I will never take advantage of or literally take for granted or ever, ever, ever forget what you have brought to my life. There are things in my life that I don't disclose and I don't talk about, and I'm very blessed that people like you are around that listen to me when I cry, and they listen to me when I can't sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, and so you have been a godsend in helping my heart to feel less heavy. So for that, I'm very grateful. Third of all, I have to tell you that you are a master on the pen, you're a master on the screen, and you are a master for what inspires and motivates other people. I've seen you in pictures, and I see the energy by which you collect from other people. You make it your own, and then you turn it into something that's magic. That is not a quality that everyone holds, even my older friends who are producing, directing, etc. It's something that I believe comes from living a life of hard times, hard realities, and hard truths about yourself and other people. And so I imagine that your short life, even though you are younger than I, has been filled with far more wisdom and wealth of life and love than you can imagine. I find you to be a very blessed and very beautiful individual by all senses of the word. The only thing that I can say is that my show quality went up 110% by your presence today here on my show and in my life. And so I'm very grateful. And I thank you so much for producing all of this work, for being part of my festival, being part of my life. And I pray for nothing but success and health and wealth and good fortune for you always. And know that this door here in this house and this telephone line to my show is open to you always. And I can say the words I love you online. I don't have to make a film showing it. I'm saying it. So there you go.
Cindy, thank you so much, too. And above all else, know that you are loved as well.
Oh, gosh, look at that. That was so sweet. God, that almost killed me. You killed me. You're killing me. I appreciate that. And I'm so sorry. Obviously, I know you took a day off, so I really, really hope that it wasn't too detrimental for you. I truly appreciate you taking the time to do that. Definitely. And we should probably talk offline and figure out how you want to do this promotion thing for the thing, so get going on that so this way you can get the rest of your stuff funded. And definitely, certainly let me know, like, how that's progressing, obviously. And folks, Producers Club, don't forget to check Artist Live Film Festival page, of course, and you and I will be in touch shortly. But thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of your day off. I'm going to go feed my children and try to chin up a little bit here because, this is really up to me. Well, the interview's up me up to a certain degree, but I'm still in mourning. So thanks for helping with that. I appreciate it.
Cindy, thank you. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, dear. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Tell me he isn't fabulous, right? I know it was like a love fest. I didn't mean to make it sound like that, but it is what it is. So again, as I might have mentioned his name is Jonathan D'Ambrosio. He can be found on the following places: www.thefrogmarch.com. His personal site is jonathandambrosio.com, and again, it's JONATHAN, D'Ambrosio, DAMBROSIO.com. His film, The Suggestion Box, is on indiegogo.com. He is on YouTube, LinkedIn. Also on Twitter is @John, Jon, and Dambro, DAMBRO. His Instagram, as he mentioned, is Mr. Literature. And, of course, Facebook. I forgot to ask him. I know he had a personal page at one point, but I don't know that it's active right now. And then, of course, obviously on Facebook, the name of the movie is called The Frogmarch. So please do your very best if you can, even if it's just $5, even if it's $1, I guarantee you that he'll take it. It's called The Suggestion Box, and date is August 29th. Of this year. So please do your best to support him, all of his films, and all of his endeavors, of course. Also, don't want to forget to remind everybody, tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, actress and business owner Lisa Wilcox will visit the show. So please do your best to listen in. One more time, huge thanks, big hug to Jonathan, huge thanks, and big hug to all of you as well for all your well wishes, for all your thoughts, all your prayers, and just listening and supporting me. I appreciate it. And big thanks to my kids who've been very quiet today so I could get this show done. So without further ado, I'm going to get back to my regular real life with my beautiful children. You guys have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon.